South Street's notes, which are valuable to, I mean, he'll point out 5 trips that I should watch. Right. If he tells you a horse had an elemental trip, then I don't need to go look at it. I mean, I've done all the late pick 5, but I haven't not. I mean, I've gone through it, but not the way I want to go. Yeah. And then, I'm going to have tons of time between races, too. So we'll be fine.
All of a sudden, like 3 shows. Okay, we'll just give it a couple minutes more. Seems like people are filing in. Thank you all for attending. A lot of new faces, some familiar. 7th annual. This is our 7th Kentucky Derby seminar. Myself and Bob, and now we're bringing on Mr. Privman. It's definitely a pleasure. Well, we're trying. We try. Every year we try. We've been consistent. We've been pretty solid, so.
Just ask him who his dad picked last year. That's it. So I want to know what your dad did.
Okay, so thank you again for joining us. We can't do this without you guys, always. I always like to thank all of our patrons before, after the seminars, before the Kentucky Derby, after. We cannot do it without you guys. Thank you so much for a tremendous turnout. Once again, we have Mr. Bob Ike, legendary handicapper, Southern California area, all over the place, basically. He could handicap anything with 4 legs. And I always remind people, it is so difficult to sweep a 9-race card in a publication, and Bob did that. A 9-race card at Santa Anita, just phenomenal. Great to have Bob aboard once again. 7 straight years, Bob.
I'll bet on cockroaches if they have 4 legs.
Definitely, without a doubt. And we have a new face up here, and this man himself is a legend as well. 39 straight Kentucky Derbies this man attended. First year he's not there, and I sucked him right up. We have to have Jay Privman here. Daily racing form, correspondent. Just recently retired, and it's great to have you, Jay,
Well,
definitely.
It's great to be here, Dwayne. I really appreciate you inviting me. Dwayne and his family come to Del Mar every summer, and we kind of hatched this little plan last year, and here we are months later, so thank you very much.
And definitely welcome, Jay. Thank you for attending, and, hopefully we could give you all some winners. We're going to do the usual thing. We'll break down each and every Derby prep, each and every Derby horse, and then we'll give out pick 4s, pick 5s, whatever Bob feels like or Jay feels like. Go ahead, Bob.
And Jay will kind of MC this, but just a little background. Jay and I have known each other since we were in our 20s. We started out in Southern California, and Jay was a few years ahead of me, working for the LA Daily News in the green sheet. And I was just coming out of college, and he asked me what I wanted to do, and I said, I want to do this. I want to be at the racetrack and be in the press box and be around these guys and learn the game. So we've had a long run in Southern California together. Jay is tremendously respected throughout the industry and recently retired, but still kind of, we see him at Del Mar and we see him on Twitter. So Jay, welcome. We're happy to have you. And I think the first slide we want to go to, Jay, is this the Asterisk Derby? You're very close with Bob Baffert, a 3-year ban. So give us your thoughts on this.
So I know the current thing is like there's going to be an asterisk next to this race, and I think for now people kind of think that way. I really think 10, 20 years from now there won't be an asterisk next to this race because people forget. But I think it's unfortunate that Baffert is not in this year's Derby. I think the punishment that Churchill Downs gave him in the aftermath of Medina Spirit a couple years ago, they suspended him for 2 years. I thought that was excessive, but I understood where it came from. Churchill Downs, that is their signature event, and they're going to be fiercely protective of it, and they felt that it was soiled, and they thought that Baffert deserved to be punished for what happened. But they said at the time that it was going to be a 2-year ban, and if he had no transgressions during those 2 years, he'd be allowed back in. And they went back on their word, and they extended it by another year, so he's out again this year, even though he's done nothing wrong. And to me, at this point, it's become, the punishment has far exceeded whatever minor crime may have been committed, because Medina Spirit tested positive for it was a medication that is legal to use but not be in a horse on race day. It's not like it was something completely illegal. Yes, you deserve to be sanctioned for that, but it's not, to me, as egregious as using something that is completely illegal. So the way things have played out now, I think it's extremely unfortunate. I hope both sides can come to a resolution before next year's Derby. It's unfortunate that he's not in the race. He's obviously a terrific trainer. He's a terrific trainer of 3-year-olds. And, so for this year, I think for this week or tomorrow, maybe there's a little bit of an asterisk, but I think 10 years from now when people look back and go like, as they will with last year's race, people look back and say Mage won it, there's not going to be an asterisk because Bob Baffert wasn't in the race.
Yeah, it's definitely Baffert should look at it as the Tom Brady theory and just look at all his triple crowns. I mean, the man's a legend, and we know that. And it seems like Churchill took an approach where we will penalize him because he won in the past and because Medina Spirit somewhat failed the test. Now, his trainers actually tried to take this into the courts, and they actually lost with Muth, possibly being able to run, and the ownership, tried to get Baffert back into the Derby. I think that even left more foul taste in Churchill's mouth. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. I agree with Jay. It's not an asterisk. Don't worry about that. But, you know, you see Baffert, you see Rick Dutrow. These are the poster childs. I mean, they're just abusing certain trainers who they feel are not legitimate or cheating the game. And it wears its course after a while. I mean, 3 years without Baffert in the Derby, and you know me, I'm a bookmaker, that hurts my handle. How many people just come up and want Bob Baffert's horse in the race, and how many people I would have just come up, oh, give me 5 to win on Baffert's horse. And, you know, he was a tremendous generator of business for the game, as well as the face of the game. I mean, he's the best trainer in my generation with 3-year-olds, like Jay said. I mean, he broke the Triple Crown streak. He's definitely one of the top trainers in the world, and it's a shame. It is.
And I think the CEO of Churchill Downs definitely dislikes Bob Baffert and wanted no chance that the 150th Derby was going to be won by a Bob Baffert horse. I think that had a lot to do with the third year extending.
I think you're right.
So, all right, well, let's move on from that topic to another topic. The man who has the horse to beat, at least the morning line favorite, Todd Pletcher's Fierceness. But look at his Derby history. 2 wins from 64 starters in 23 Derbies. Jay, I know you'll defend that a little bit by saying he started multiple horses many, many years.
He has started multiple horses many years. You know, as you can see by that, it's like an average of 3 a year almost, 64 starters and 23 Derbies. He's had as many as 5 a couple of times. So obviously if you're starting 5, the best you could even do in a situation like that is 1 out of 5, right? Unless there's a dead heat. You know, a lot of the times, Pletcher, I mean, his record, that record looks pretty ugly, right? 2 for 64. I don't think he's got a great Derby record, but it's certainly not that bad. A lot of the horses that he's run in the Derby have been really big long shots that I think were well spotted to win some of the prep races and earn enough points, or in the previous way they did it back, 12 years ago and more, by earnings. I think he's really sharp about placing 3-year-olds, knowing what level they can compete at and maximizing their potential. And by doing that, he gets horses into the Derby, but a lot of the times it's horses who really don't have a good chance. This year, that's different. Obviously, Fierceness is a top-class horse. He's the morning line favorite. I think in the imputed odds from the Oaks Derby, he's going to be the favorite at approximately 2 to 1, it looked like. So this is one of the rare times that Pletcher will have the favorite in the Kentucky Derby.
Yeah, definitely. Jay makes great points. And I know a ton of trainers that would love to have 2 Kentucky Derby wins. So, don't buy much into the record. He has had multiple entries in a lot of these Kentucky Derbies. He's a legend. He has Johnny V on this horse. So, we know those combinations and how that tandem has, that's basically, they both, they worked off of each other, and that's why they're both Hall of Famers and definitely at the top of their game. And this horse, he runs his race. He's going to be tough. I wouldn't buy much into the Pletcher history like, these guys just told you. It's going to be tough, but still, he has 2 victories, and this horse is definitely capable.
So what we like to do here is go through and show you the replay of these Derby preps, and this is kind of a history of it. And Jay, maybe take a look at this. The Florida Derby since 2000 has been the most productive race. That's the race Mage won last year. Fierceness won it this year. But just kind of take us through. We know, being Southern California guys, the Santa Anita Derby has always been a powerhouse prep race. But I thought this was kind of interesting. When you look at the bottom, Bluegrass Louisiana Derby, you would have thought maybe expecting more in the last 23, 24 years.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the reason, Bob, that the Bluegrass hasn't done as well is they went through that unfortunate era of having a synthetic surface, and I think you had a lot of wacky results there, and it kind of has skewed things. I do think you'll start seeing more horses coming out of the Bluegrass and either winning or doing well in the Derby, but you can see it's pretty equitably spread out, especially between the Florida Derby, the Santa Anita Derby, and the Arkansas Derby. And I think one of the reasons that it's played out that way is because those 3 tracks all have really good 3-year-old programs. You know, in the Florida Derby is preceded by the Fountain of Youth and the Holy Bull, so you can bring a horse along nicely there. Same thing at Santa Anita. You've got the San Felipe prior to that, or a race like the San Rafael or the Robert Lewis. And then the Arkansas Derby is the end of a great series with the Rebel and the Southwest Stakes. So you can be based at a track like that and bring your horse along in a nice progression. And then it's just, you know, it's just a lot of times it's just random as to where the best horse or horses are coming out of each year. And I think we're going to see that this year as we look through the field. I think there's top contenders that are coming out of every region.
And Dwayne, I like to always tease you, being a New Yorker, how bad the wood has been over the last 20 years.
It's horrible, but I'll tell you, at Santa Anita Derby and the Arkansas Derby, Baffert assaulted those. That's why you see it a lot. You know, 8 winners out of those 2 races. And, you know, like Jay said, the Florida Derby, that's the Gulfstream Championship meet, basically. You know, you have all the top riders in the country that focus on that meet during, you know, the winter months and as it gets into the first Saturday in May. I think the Bluegrass is really close to the Kentucky Derby. It's like the last prep, so that's why you don't see that. I love the way Bob has the Haskell in there for the COVID year, because the Haskell was actually a prep that year. So many people don't know that. You thought there was a typographical error, but the Haskell was a prep to the Kentucky Derby in the COVID year. Yeah, the wood is very difficult to come out of the wood and win. You know, that's definitely, even Turfway Park is creeping up now with the Ruby and those, you know, other preps there. So, very interesting chart right there. Florida Derby, though, should lead the way. Santa Anita Derby catching up quickly, though.
Well, should we get into showing the replays? So what we'll do is we'll go in order here. Hopefully everybody has one of these Derby prep sheets, because they tell you which of tomorrow's horses ran in that race and what post position they were. And then we'll talk about the race afterwards and give you our thoughts on each horse that comes out of there. So you guys talk for a second. Let me cue this up and we'll get rolling.
So as Bob was just showing in that previous thing, the Bluegrass Stakes has had fewer winners coming out of it in recent years than races like the Arkansas Derby or the Santa Anita Derby or the Florida Derby. But, you know, this year there's a couple of, I think, pretty live horses in this race. In the replay that we're going to watch here, the horses that you want to keep an eye on are numbers 4, 6, 8, and 10 are the ones in here. With Sierra Leone, the horse is going to come from off the pace and win it, and Just a Touch ran second.
And one note on this race, guys, when I was doing this replay, it reminded me how long Sierra Leone delayed the start of this race. He was in the 10 post, and if you see the little red bar, that's like 2 minutes and 19 seconds. They tried to load this horse, and they finally got him in. So I didn't think we wanted to watch that for 2 minutes. But anyway, the race is ready. Let's go ahead and watch it, and then we'll talk about it afterwards.
Last one goes in. At the post. And they're off in the Toyota Bluegrass. There goes Top Connor out for the early lead. Top Connor right out of the gate and right to the front. Just a touch moves up toward the outside to press the issue now in second. Door knock away third. Good Money is in fourth position. Epic Ride is a wide fifth. BU is away running in sixth. Sees the Gray between horses seventh. Lat Long a bit wide around the first turn. 3 lanes off the rail in eighth. Sierra Leone is in ninth position. Mugatu is last of the 10. Top Connor is the leader. Top Connor on top by 3/4 of a length. Headed on to the back stretch. Just a touch goes second just off his flank in 23.15 seconds for the opening quarter. And then further back, Epic Ride is third by just a neck. Door Knock is fourth against the rail, just 2 lengths off the lead. Gap of 2 more. BU sneaks up the rail into the fifth position. Good Money, sixth on the outside. It is followed by Seize the Gray in seventh. Lat Long is eighth. Mugatu is ninth, and Sierra Leone is last of 10, facing a lot of traffic to deal with onto the far turn. 46.48 seconds, the time for that first half mile. Top Connor, the leader. Top Connor leads a length and a half. Just a touch is second by a length to Epic Ride, who's third a half length. Door Knock is still there in fourth to the inside, and BU is in fifth and still 7 lengths off the lead. Now Sierra Leone is toward the center of the pack, looking toward the outside. 8 lengths to make up, just over a quarter mile to go. Top Connor is the leader. Epic Ride swings wide, just a touch between horses. Door Knock has to shift lanes along with Sierra Leone. That pair out in the center of the track, still 5 lengths off the lead as they move by the 8th pole. Just a touch has taken the lead from Top Connor. Sierra Leone is running on from the outside. A 16th to go. Sierra Leone comes forward for the lead and deep stretch and wins the Toyota Bluegrass for Tyler Gaffalione. Just a touch was second. Epic.
Jay, why don't you start with Door Knock, because as gamblers, we're always looking at head-to-head matchups, and my buddy Alan here, we like a horse that we think might go out the back door, and then everybody else is going to pass him for the head-to-heads. And I kind of had it in my mind, and I texted Jay a few nights ago, and I said, give me a horse or two that you really dislike in the race. And you said if you could bet one to finish last, it would be?
Door Knock. He's number one in this race, but not number one in my heart. He's number one in the Derby, if you've got your Derby past performances. I'll tell you the reason I don't like him. When I watched the replay of this race, to me, he was just outrun into the first turn. It wasn't like they seem to think that he's got a lot of speed. And to me, the video evidence in the Bluegrass just does not back that up. He's drawn an inside post for the Kentucky Derby, so he has to leave from there. There's no way he's going to be able to do anything else. And I don't think he's quick enough to keep up with the likes of Just a Touch or Fierceness or some of the other horses who I think have much more natural early speed. And so because of that, I just think he's going to get hot and dirty down there on the inside, and I could see him just completely giving up, heading to the far turn and finishing last. Now look, he might end up finishing 14th, but if he does much better than that, I would be surprised. I'm very much against him.
Dwayne, you like Sierra Leone's race, obviously. It was a good effort. Tell us about it.
Yeah, definitely. You know, you could see the move on the top, in the top of the stretch. And, you know, Gaffalione is just top-notch right now. The kid is riding lights out. And time and time again, you know, he is like the major competition now for Irad Ortiz for one of the best in the world. You know, he, Flavian Pratt, these guys know how to win. And this horse is progressing very well. It's a lot different from the Remsen, where Door Knock actually beat Sierra Leone. And that was a weirdly run race, because Sierra Leone, I had that day, and I thought he was zooming on by, and he kind of pulled up when he got next to Door Knock, because I don't think he was mature enough. Now Sierra Leone is a totally different horse, and you know, you could see the last 2 races are just incredible. The Risen Star, the Close, the horse is bred to like an off track, so it's been a little saturated if you didn't notice today. You know, you have Chad Brown. I can't speak enough about Chad. He is one of the top trainers in the United States, if not the world. He always conditions his horses so well. And this horse this week just was gleaming. I mean, shiny coat, full of himself. Everybody noticed it, how good he was taking to the Churchill Downs surroundings. And that's so very important. You have to like the racetrack. Churchill is a unique racetrack, and this horse seems to be thriving in his environment. And that's very, very important. He is one of the top contenders in this race. I agree with Jay. Door Knock, you know, he couldn't even get the lead in the Bluegrass. So it wasn't like the Fountain of Youth, where, if you notice, he was 20 cents on the dollar. So where was the competition in that race? There wasn't much. I definitely agree. Sierra Leone is probably much better than Door Knock, and definitely a top 3 contender in this Kentucky Derby if he runs his race.
And since I picked Just a Touch on top tomorrow, I'll talk about him. I thought he ran an incredibly good race to be second behind Sierra Leone. This horse, if he has the Mage pattern, if you remember last year's Derby winner. I looked up Mage's PPs last night. They're very, very similar. Both won maiden races first time out. Then they were defeated, and then they ran in the final prep race and ran second. Just a Touch actually has better buyer numbers and improving buyer numbers more than Mage did last year. Brad Cox, he's been the king of Kentucky. This horse has handled slop. It looks like he's progressed very well from 6 furlongs to a mile and an eighth. And I thought he ran well. He pressed a hot pace. He put away everybody else. He couldn't haul off the winner. He's more tactical than the winner. And Giroux, you know, is one of the go-to guys for Brad Cox. So I give him a huge chance tomorrow. I'm going to pick him on top. I think he's a value play. And guys, there's a horse who got in from the also eligible list. We saw that 2 years ago, number 21.
Yeah, and that's Epic Ride. By the way, if you guys have the past performances for tomorrow, you know, there were 22 entered in the race, but there are now 2 official scratches from the race. Number 9, Encino, is officially out, and number 22, Mugatu, is also out. But 21, Epic Ride, as Bob just mentioned, gets in. He finished 3rd in the Bluegrass, and he just looks to me, Bob, like a horse who's going to be pressing the pace, but I just don't think he's good enough to be much of a factor in here. And with the wide draw, he's going to be the widest of all the horses pressing the pace, and that's not really a good spot to be in if you don't finish your race off well, and he just doesn't look like a horse who can finish.
Yeah, and getting back to just a touch, Bob is definitely right. I mean, you look at the Ragozin numbers, they show a 10, 8, 9. So there's definitely the bounce factor where you could bounce into a 7 or a 6. Look at the breeding, Justify, Tap It, definitely could get the distance. So don't be leery because Sierra Leone blew by at Keeneland. This could be a totally different scenario. You have to remember, I think Sierra Leone actually benefited from the 2-hole because he's going to be so far back. He always is in the rear, and you don't have to navigate to get over to the rail now. So keep that in mind. But he still has to go past those horses. And if this horse is right with fierceness, you know, they're going to be tough to catch. And Brad Cox knows exactly what to do. We don't have to talk about Brad.
So the Arkansas Derby's the next one we'll show, and the horse that wins this race easily, he's not in the Kentucky Derby. We talked about him, and that was Muth, one of the Bob Baffert horses who's banned. Jay, the runner-up, I thought ran well, and we have a horse who's kind of an off-track specialist, I think, in Mystic Dan. So we'll go ahead and show this. The winner's not in. The second horse, I thought, did run a pretty good race. Let's watch.
Yeah, the 2 horses to focus in on who are running in the Derby are numbers 8 and 9 in here. They're not 8 and 9 in the Derby. They're 8 and 9 in the race we're about to watch.
We're ready to go. And we're off in the Arkansas Derby. And a good break for all the runners in the race, and there was a roar from the crowd as they left the gate. Time for Truth up on the pace. He's Provident, and there's Muth on a hold right now. These 2 together with 1 lap to go. Chess Steel runs in the 3rd position. Timberlake 4th. Scraping Pain approaching the turn on the heels of the leader around the turn. Informed Patriot in the 5th position early. Dymatic a little bit keen, but more settled down than in his last race. He's 2 lengths off the lead as they're pretty tightly clumped up. Mystic Dan and Liberal Arts are next. Liberal Arts has to take up here and drops towards the back of the field here. Imperial Gun alongside of him. Awkward move for Liberal Arts, who's at the back with Imperial Gun. So they're down the back stretch here. Muth on the outside, and Timberlake, Flavian Pratt lets him loose on the inside, lets it out a notch, and he's the pacemaker down the back stretch. So it is Timberlake, the Rebel winner, in front by a half length. Muth perched outside of him, hounding from the outside. Just Steel 3rd. Time for Truth between horses. Dymatic is down on the inside. Then Informed Patriot will take at the maiden is dropped back. Mystic Dan patiently ridden. He's out of harm's way on the outside. 7 lengths off the pace. Liberal Arts trying to re-rally in the second last spot. And Imperial Guns at the back around the 4th turn. There goes Muth to challenge Timberlake, and the race is on now. Muth on the outside, strides level. Timberlake back in second as Muth takes command. Muth and Juan Hernandez have a 1/4 mile more to get, and Hernandez gives him the cue to go, and Muth off the turn, still in front. Timberlake second, Just Steel 3rd, then Mystic Dan, who tries to rally on. Furlong to go. It's Muth. Just Steel running huge in second. Timberlake 3rd. Muth with a 16 to go. He's opened up by 3, and it's Muth coming down the stretch in Hot Springs to win it. Muth, the son of good magic, wins the Arkansas Derby. Just Steel 2nd. Mystic Dan 3rd. Timberlake flattens out to 4.
I like Muth and the Preakness in 2 weeks. He's being pointed for that race, and I'm not sure that I'm going to there's a horse I could be rooting harder for than Muth in 15 days to win the Preakness. Guys, what'd you think of the runner-up, and what about Mystic Dan?
Well, I mean, of course, Muth looked great there. JJ was pumped up there. He had a handful. But Just Steel ran respectable, I will say. Definitely, it was a good runner-up finish, especially at 32-1. The horse really ran well. Mystic Dan had a horrible trip. And let's keep in mind, this combination of Mystic Dan, McPeak, and Brian Hernandez, they won the Oaks today with ease on the off track. And like Bob said, this horse likes an off track. That was a tough trip if you look at it. Mystic Dan, he was on the outside, then he went to the inside, then he had to go around to get third and was actually game doing that. This horse could definitely bounce into a good race, in my opinion. He had his bad run now. That was a bad race for him, and he was definitely better in the Southwest where he crushed. Make note, he also ran against Closing Freedom. He didn't run all that well, which is another Brad Cox horse. But if the track is really saturated, this horse has a chance, and the connections are tremendous. Kenny McPeak, is definitely a top conditioner. Brian Hernandez, he flies under the radar, but this kid could really ride, and you saw that today in the Oaks. So, I will use this horse definitely in superfectas and on the bottom end of trifectas possibly. But, I don't believe he could finish in the top 4, but I'm still going to use him because if there's saturation in the track and the connections, definitely could put something over here.
Jay, I know you're a big fan of Brian Hernandez. It's one of your favorite jockeys. Is Mystic Dan just an off-track horse? I mean, if it somehow rained 2 hours before the race tomorrow, this could move the horse up.
Yeah, I do think he's an off-track horse. I'm not sure, Bob and Dwayne, if he really wants 1.25 miles. He's by Golden Sense, and as Dwayne was pointing out, he did have a little bit of trouble in that race, but he seemed to me like he was kind of losing his punch the last 16th or 8th of a mile in this race, and I'm not sure if the extra furlong of the Derby is gonna suit him. The one thing I will say though is, let price be your guide on this horse if you're someone who plays trifectas or superfectas, because this is Brian Hernandez is as smart a rider as anybody in all the years I've done this. He is as sharp a guy as I've ever come across. He strategizes, he knows the competition, he rides a smart race, and he will give this horse its best chance to finish well. And I would use this horse underneath in like tries and supers because he'll let the horse drop back and make a run. And as Bob was pointing out, and Dwayne as well, if it's an off track, he'll move up. I don't think he's going to like the 1.25 miles, but if you're spreading in that part of like the try or super, to me, he's worth throwing in.
And Jay, I wanted to ask you, all the years you've covered, what was your relationship like with Wayne Lucas, who's the trainer of Just Steel? He's, approaching 90 now, and he's sort of the grandfatherly figure that everybody loves, but it wasn't always so back in the day. What was your relationship with Lucas like?
I think my relationship with him was like just about every other turf rider. It was complicated. Early on, he had utter disdain for most racing riders, and most of the racing business didn't like him. He was very brash, very aggressive with the way he managed his horses. You remember he was one of the first guys who had multiple barns set up all across the country, and there's so many guys who do it that way now, but he was kind of a pioneer in doing things like that. And the coaching tree that he has of all the guys that have come up, from under him, like, Todd Pletcher and Michael McCarthy and Mike Maker and on and on and on, have done so well. But, as Bob was pointing out, it's been funny to kind of watch Wayne's evolvement. I had ups and downs with him over the years. I'll tell you one funny story in a minute, but, it started off good. There were times it went bad, and it usually went bad when Wayne was going bad, and he would take it out on us. But now he's kind of morphed into everybody's favorite uncle. He seems more at peace with himself these days. I mean, I think he knows that his legacy is cemented as one of the greatest of all time, and he seems to just sort of be content with where he's at right now in life, and I think that's great. And to me, there's so many parallels at, where he was with where Baffert is now. And I've thought about this a lot. I really wonder if 15 years from now, if people are going to look at Baffert like they do now Lucas, because if you have followed this game a long time, you remember when Lucas was a despised person. I mean, people really didn't like him. I alluded to this one story I wanted to tell. So he was really good friends with Bobby Knight, Wayne Lucas was. And there was one year where Bobby Knight came to the barn one morning, and Wayne wanted to put on a show in front of the reporters. And at the Derby, there's a ton of media, right? I mean, but we all have to stay behind sawhorses or things like that. You can't go running up and down the shed row unless the trainer invites you in. So obviously a lot of the reporters wanted to see Bobby Knight, especially the columnists from the newspapers who don't cover racing that much. But what a great story. Bobby Knight is here. I can write a column about Bobby Knight being at the Kentucky Derby. So Wayne decides he's going to put on a little show for Bobby in front of all the media. I'll pretend that you guys are the press. And I'm Wayne Lucas standing with the horses behind me in my shed row. And he went, "Bobby, these are the horses, and these are the horses' asses."
Oh, that's a great story. I guess it came with the Eugene Klein money, right?
Good stuff.
Unbelievable.
Good stuff. All right, let's watch the Louisiana Derby. 3 horses here. Catching Freedom is the 5, Honor Marie the 7, Track Phantom. Different styles. You'll see the winner, Catching Freedom, came from way out of it. And Track Phantom is a horse who's up on the lead. So watch this one, and then we'll make our comments.
And they're off in the TwinSpires.com Louisiana Derby. And there's Awesome Ruda, who strides away. Hall of Fame with Antiquarian, who broke through the gate prior to the start, and now Track Phantom with this early bid for Joel Rosario to take the early lead as they head toward the first turn. It's Track Phantom, who's emerged in front of Hall of Fame with Common Defense right there, Awesome Ruda in 4th, Antiquarian in 5th, and Tuscan Gold is 6th as they enter the first turn. Then comes Next Level. One off the rail is Real Man Violin, and they have 7 furlongs to run as these leaders go to the back of this historic New Orleans track. Anna Marie is racing outside of Agate Road, who settled with the rail, and Catching Freedom has dropped back to be 11th and last. The opening quarter covered in 23.49 seconds. So it's Track Phantom. Track Phantom dictates the pace here. From Common Defense, who stays close to Track Phantom, who's allowed to dictate terms here for the run to the half-mile pole. With on the outside Tuscan Gold in the gold cap, and Hall of Fame is running in 4th. Awesome Root in the red cap in 5th. Then comes Antiquarian, a wide 6th. Next Level is 7th. Real Men Violin 8th between horses, and 6 lengths from Tuscan Gold, who leads the Louisiana Derby field past the half mile. Then comes Anna Marie still together with Agate Road, and the trailer remains Catching Freedom. Half mile in 48.33 seconds. 3/4 for Track Phantom, 1 minute 12.54 seconds. It's Track Phantom who leads coming toward the quarter pole, but Common Defense has been right there with the front runner. It's Track Phantom and Common Defense. They're a neck apart as they turn for home. Antiquarian is sweeping outside of Tuscan Gold. Then toward the inside, Awesome Ruda. Hall of Fame down there with the rail. Catching Freedom is unwinding on the extreme outside through the final quarter of a mile. And it's Common Defense. Toward the inside, Track Phantom determined. Track Phantom sticking that neck out. Just holds Common Defense. Moving up Tuscan Gold. And here comes Catching Freedom, who's charging for Flavian Pratt. They come past the 16th. Last to first. It's Catching Freedom to win the Louisiana Derby. Anna Marie was second to Catching Freedom. Tuscan Gold third.
Guys, that was a good late run. Very impressive. I think there's a stat on Flavian Pratt. I want to talk to Dwayne about this for a second, because Dwayne's the biggest Irad Ortiz fan in the world, and I might be the biggest Flavian Pratt fan in the world. I think my guy is one of the best I've ever seen, and I'm talking about Hall of Famers like Shoemaker, Pinkai, McCarran, Delahousie. I think Flavian Pratt could have ridden with any of those guys. And I think, Jay, he's never been worse than third in his 6 starts, maybe, 6 rides in the Kentucky Derby.
Including getting put up on Country House when Maximum Security was disqualified.
Dwayne?
Talent level is incredible. I'm not going to doubt his talent level. I mean, that would just be silly. I mean, he dominates Southern California. If he was riding there, he'd just dominate. And now he's chosen the right path to be a journeyman, go to Churchill, go to Belmont, go to Saratoga. And he's a thorn in Irat's side, in Saratoga. He's a great rider, and definitely that was a great closing kick. And Anna Marie was inside. That was a deceiving race call because they were both, closing and sucking up Track Phantom, who Track Phantom is more, in my opinion, he'll be a good miler. This horse definitely could. He's got gas out of the gate. I'm not sure if he could go 1.25 miles. Catching Freedom, that was an unbelievable close. That was coming off the Risen Star where Sierra Leone did outclose this horse. So, this is the second of Brad Cox's horses that we're talking about, but he's really coming into the race well from a speed figure perspective and definitely has an excellent, excellent chance. And if you look at his prior races, he is acclimated. He broke his maiden over the Churchill Downs course, ran a poor race, then, it was a 100,000 optional claim at 1 mile and a 16th, but I wouldn't buy much into that because that was when the horse was a 2-year-old. You start to develop. Brad Cox, one of the best conditioners in the world. He was on show today. He had a couple of winners on the Oaks card, and definitely, when you have Flavian Pratt, like Bob has said, that helps your chances of winning even more. Definitely has a chance.
Jay, was this race any good? I mean, the flow of the race, was everybody coming wide and just kind of bunching? Was it just a weak race?
Yeah, you asked. To me, you and I are of similar mind, it sounds like. I don't like anything out of this race.
Well, I am going to pick Pratt second, but
okay.
Just because it's...
I thought the race flow completely flattered Catching Freedom and Anna Marie. I thought Track Phantom was against the race flow. I don't think Track Phantom wants 1.25 miles. But in evaluating this race, I think when you see horses as bunched up as these ones were at the end of the race, that to me is usually a telltale sign that it was not a strong race. And Catching Freedom, if you get a chance, if you really want to drill down on this horse, he didn't change leads in his next to last start, and he changed very late in the race we just watched. I think he's still an immature horse. When he worked out the other day, I thought his stablemate Encino was better than him in the work. Encino's out of the race. Anna Marie to me is just a grinder. He doesn't really kick it in, so I'm against him. So I'm going to regret this at this time tomorrow, but I'm against everything coming out of the Louisiana Derby.
Well, let's go to the race that I think we would all agree was the tour de force race along the Derby prep trail, and this is the Florida Derby where the real fierceness showed up. He broke alertly. 3 horses that are running tomorrow come out of this race, but it was really a one-horse race, and you're going to see the one horse, but everybody else is in his wake. He's the 2-year-old champion. He's gotten huge buyers on a couple of his performances, winning last year's Breeders' Cup Juvenile and this race, and then we'll see if there's any chinks in the armor. So let's watch the Florida Derby.
23rd Florida Derby. They're in the gate. And they're off in the Florida Derby. Fierceness was away perfectly from his outside draw. Will use some speed to try to get over. Meanwhile, it's Grand Mo the first, who's at the rail and in front with Ladombro right alongside. Fierceness, he's on the accelerator early as Johnny V. He's up and around horses, and he wants to lead. So Fierceness will land the front in the run to the opening quarter. In between horses, Ladombro out 3 wide is Catalytic, and Grand Mo the first is at the rail. They're followed by Real Macho, who races outside of Hades. Hades is about 3.5 lengths off the speed ahead of Iris's Dream. Covered up between horses is Conquest Warrior, and the early trailer is Frankie's Empire. The opening quarter just 24 seconds flat. Fierceness on his A game so far. He's a length in front over Catalytic, a wide second. In between horses, Ladombro, Grand Mo the first is at the rail. Real Macho works out in the center, racing in front of Hades. Then Iris's Dream and Conquest Warrior still out the back, but in the clear is Frankie's Empire. And with the half and 47-2, they have the favorite to catch. It's Fierceness to the far turn on top by 1.5 lengths. Working harder is Catalytic at the rail, Grand Mo the first. Ladombro has to quicken, but he's not. At the rail, it's Conquest Warrior trying to launch his bid. Frankie's Empire is wide on the course, but Johnny V still sitting pretty on Fierceness, who tries to sneak away. 3/4, 1:11-1. They run to the 5/16, and Fierceness, he is getting away. He's now 4 in front. Catalytic is second, Grand Mo the first is third. On the outside, Frankie's Empire, Conquest Warrior at the rail, but they all have too much to do. Fierceness Fierceness is putting on a show in Hallandale today. Fierceness, the real Fierceness, has showed up to South Florida, and he's crushing them in the Florida Derby. Fierceness geared down and on his way to Louisville. Fierceness authoritatively in the Florida Derby. He never had a threat. Catalytic was second. It's a very close photo for third between Grandmo the first.
Bob, I think you need to bat leadoff here. What do you think of this horse?
I mean, if he shows up and does what he did right there, it's game over. This is, to me, the most talented horse. But, Jay, you tweeted out something afterwards, and I think we have the same concern about Fierceness. He's got 3 brilliant efforts and 2 very subpar efforts. The 2 subpars are when he doesn't come out running and get into that good opening strides and have things kind of go his own way. That, you know, and if he breaks sharp tomorrow and he gets that trip, good night. The race is over. If he gets bumped around at the start and has to deal with adversity at 2-1 or 5-2, well, I think he's vulnerable. What do you guys think?
You know, I think the draw was very advantageous for him. I think if he'd have gotten an inside draw, it would have been really a real challenge for him. I like that he's drawn wide in here because I think he wants to get out clean and in the clear and just get into a good rhythm. But as Bob was just pointing out, I mean, he has alternated just absolutely brilliant races with real clunkers, and it's all dependent on what kind of trip he gets. And if he doesn't get out of the gate, to me, it could be a long afternoon for him. So, you know, on natural ability, there's no better horse in the race. But he's got to get everything, to me, his way. And that could happen, but it doesn't always happen. So the way I'm approaching him in terms of betting tomorrow is I'm going to use him in the pick 4 that lands on this race. I'm going to use him in exotics, but I'm hoping to beat him because he's going to be 2-1. And to me, 2-1 is not good value on a horse who doesn't have to win in a 20-horse field.
Dwayne?
Yeah, definitely. You guys bring up great points. You know, you have 3 monsters races. You have the 2 bad races. Broke terrible in the Champagne. You know, and you look at the time of the Champagne, 1:35.4. Well, in the Florida Derby, he just ran 1:35.1 and still had to run a further distance. So, you know, if he gets out of the gate, and I think this post position now, I believe it's the 16. He moved him 1. He's not out of the 0 for 44, 17, if I'm not correct. You know, and you could throw all those things out because they do have the 20-horse starting gate now. They used to not have that. They had the auxiliary gate, which would make those post positions very difficult. Johnny V is in the saddle. I mean, this horse has run some monstrous races, won at Saratoga, Santa, and Gulfstream. You know, and you look at the clinkers, though, they're really, really bad, like Bob said. I mean, you go from a 141.4 in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, and you're crushing Muth, destroying Muth, and then you come back in the Holy Bull, and that race was running 146 at the same distance. So hopefully Todd has the screws tightened and has corrected the 1 bad, 1 good, 1 bad, 1 good. And a lot of people who are out there, the general public, are seeing that impressive race, and that's why he's going to be 2-1, 9-5. I hate giving out favorites, you know, in the Kentucky Derby, but this horse is by far the most talented. Mike Rapoli is an amazing owner. He is great for the game. You know, he's very outspoken on Twitter. I know that. He wants to be somewhat of a commissioner for all these owners and trainers. And, you know, he definitely, when he is buying and purchasing horses and investing, it's good for the game. Todd Pletcher, we looked at his record, you know, the 2 wins. This might be the 3rd, though, guys, and Gaffalione, once again, he's holding all the cards. This kid is a phenomenal, young, talented rider, and he will just keep going as long as, barring injury or anything, you know, catastrophic. So I think this horse has definitely got to be used. Top 3 finisher, in my opinion.
And we probably don't need to talk about the other 2 also-rans in this race. No on Catalytic, no on Grandmo first.
Correct.
Okay. Correct. Santa Anita Derby is next. This, to me, was a really exciting race. I don't think it was a strong field. We didn't have Nisos in there for Bob Baffert, who, you know, I thought was the best 3-year-old. He's sidelined right now. Hopefully we'll see him again in the future. But this is a horse named Stronghold. He's number 3, trained by Phil D'Amato. Nice, hard-knocking horse. He's been in a couple good dog fights. I'm not sure it was a real strong edition of the Santa Anita Derby, but I think you'll enjoy the excitement and the stretch battle of this race.
And they're off in the Santa Anita Derby, and Stronghold gets the first call. EJ won the cup. Imagination broke beautifully in between them and puts his head in front. Now Tapalo rushes up along the inside to engage Imagination, and just behind them, Winstock fifth through the opening furlong. Tessuto outside Curlin's Chaos, McVeigh 3 wide and last. Tapalo will be the pace setter. Opens up 2 on Imagination second. EJ won the cup in the center of the track. Between rivals, Stronghold and Curlin's Chaos is down at the rail. Winstock has 5 lengths to make up. McVeigh is next. Having a little bit of a difficult time is McVeigh. And another 2 back to Tessuto. They move on to the backstretch, and it's Tapalo and Umberto Rispoli setting the tempo. Imagination gliding up to him in second, and EJ won the cup is 3 wide in third. Another 3 back to Stronghold, who's patiently handled fourth, 3.5 lengths off the pace at this stage. Winstock is fifth past the half-mile pole. Curlin's Chaos down at the rail. The 2 trailers are Tessuto and McVeigh. Heading to the 3/8 pole, Tapalo, Imagination yet to be called on, a length and a half back second. Stronghold awaiting racing room. He's just inside. EJ won the cup. Then Curlin's Chaos, Winstock, another 3 to Tessuto and McVeigh. Imagination making his move past the quarter pole. EJ won the cup, running a good race on the outside. Tapalo is down at the rail, and Stronghold won from the outside. A driving finish. Stronghold bursts through between horses and is up to take the lead at the furlong pole. Imagination trying to match strides with him, and EJ won the cup in third. It's Imagination and Stronghold nose and nose in the Santa Anita Derby. Stronghold just in front, and Stronghold prevails under Antonio Fresu. They're in the gate. And they're off in the Santa Anita Derby.
Jay, I know you give Stronghold a long shot chance based on the picks that we're going to show in a minute. So why don't you talk about him first? He'll be a big price tomorrow, but you think maybe these battle-tested races are going to help him out?
Yeah, he's on the imputed odds of the Oaks Derby double. He's going to be 28 to 1. He's my, if I was doing a graded handicap, he would be my second choice in the race. To me, he's a really intriguing horse. Some of the things I like about him is that he always breaks well, so he gets position, which I think is going to be critical tomorrow. I like the fact that he's going to be a price. I think that the race that we just watched is a better race than people are giving it credit for. He's one of the rare horses based in California who's already got a win at Churchill Downs because he was back in Kentucky to begin his career for D'Amato last year. So we know he likes the surface. There's a lot of just intriguing little aspects to him. And one of the other things I like about the way he's been handled is that they kind of gave him an easy run as his first start as a 3-year-old in the Sunland Park Derby, and then stepped him forward to the Santa Anita Derby. And the horse that he beat in the Santa Anita Derby, Imagination, is being pointed for the Preakness right now, along with Muth. And I think if Imagination was in the Kentucky Derby tomorrow, he would be in the 6 or 8 to 1 range. And here's a horse who just beat him on the square, who's going to be 3 to 4 times that price. That, to me, is very good value. And I think that the buyer figure in this race is not as good as it actually was. And that's just, Imagination had run 94 and 96 in his 2 previous starts. Usually 3-year-olds are improving at this time of year. This race, they only gave it an 88. Maybe that's right. I'm looking at it a little skeptically. And the final thing that put me over the top with this horse is watching the video of his work at Churchill Downs and the gallops that I've seen on video since his workout. He looks to me like he's thriving. So to me, he's a great gamble tomorrow, and I'm using him tomorrow pretty strongly.
And Dwayne, that was the day Frankie Dettori had won 6 races already on the card, and Imagination was going to be his 7th. That was a hell of a stretch battle. What do you think of Stronghold?
Well, they weren't going to let him beat Left Feet's record, right? Left Feet has the 7th. Yeah, you know, the legend. Fresu's a great rider. This kid, Antonio Fresu, has a ton of heart, and I've watched him, progress. So don't feel nervous with the rider. Phil D'Amato, we know he's a Southern Cal-based, but does have barns, in the Midwest now. And this horse was able, like Jay said, to beat Track Phantom at a mile over the course and that was breaking his maiden as a 2-year-old. Now, the last race is very nice. I mean, you could see very game coming out of that Sunlam race. You know, definitely has a chance. I also thought the buyer was kind of light. You're going to also, he beat Resilience, who we're going to watch right now, win the Wood Memorial in that maiden race as well. So this horse is capable, definitely flying under the radar, and we know how the Santa Anita Derby has produced 4 winners like Bob had up there. So I wouldn't count the horse out. I mean, I'm going to use him on the tail end. I don't believe he's fast enough. He's very acclimated to Churchill. His gallops do look strong, even better than Fierceness, who's been a little, you know, touch and go over the surface. But I just don't believe he's fast enough to compete with the top 3, in my opinion. But he definitely could get in the superfecta and surprise me. So he has a chance.
So we have one horse coming out of the Wood Memorial. That is the winner, number 1, Resilience. There was a nasty spill in this race, which is not shown on this replay, so we didn't need to see that. So they will cut away for a few seconds in mid-stretch. Resilience, trained by Bill Mott, on the rail, the winner of the traditionally unproductive Wood Memorial.
Shorts, World Casino, and they're off, and Uncle Heavy off a step slow. Resilience right out to the front. Lonesome Boy is in that early mix, and there's Evening News. Evening News and Eric Cancel will push the tempo. Resilience is going to take back. Just had to check briefly there in second. Outside of that one comes Lonesome Boy. Then comes Deterministic, who settled into 4th, is to the inside of Society Man, who's now a shared 4th. They share that 4th and 5th position. A little rank early, that was Merit, who's to the outside of Gettysburg Addresses in the lime green silks. Light blue silks there with Deposition out wider. Tuscan Sky is towards the tail end. Uncle Heavy is at the back end of the field there with Protective, and the trailer, Elysian Meadows. They work up the backstretch. Evening News has got the lead. Pressure here from Lonesome Boy. The 2 long shots went 23.45 for the opening quarter mile. Resilience is settling off of them, is now patiently ridden by John Velasquez from 3rd. Then behind them at the rail is Deterministic, still sharing that spot with Society Man. Deposition with an early move. Deposition is now taken 6th, and behind that is Merit in 7th with less than a half mile to go. They went 47.49 for a half mile time. They've got to catch the big long shots, Evening News and Lonesome Boy, who's under a drive. Here comes Resilience moving in closer. Deterministic will need somewhere to go. Deposition is in the hunt. Society Man, Orange Cap is splitting rivals. Uncle Heavy, Tuscan Sky, Protective from the back of the field. They're all making a charge for the lead. Lonesome Boy will have the lead here with Resilience, and now Resilience presses on, and Resilience is quickly up by 2, 3 widening lengths. Society Man is in the clear. Oh, we had a spill there. Deposition clipped heels and went down. It was Resilience who's opening up, is up by 2.5, 3 lengths. Society Man down towards the inside. Protective. Resilience is drifting out. It's Resilience who's clear, is up by 3 lengths now. Resilience will win the Wood. Society Man second. Protective. Lonesome Boy is going to finish.
Dwayne, why don't you start with your home state race?
I mean, it was okay. I mean, Aqueduct was my stomping grounds, though. Loved it. It was an okay race. I mean, you could see Johnny V was pumped at the top of the stretch. It's just a question of who was he beating right here. And, you know, Bill Mott, legendary train over 4,000 wins, one of the best ever. I mean, I'm not going to question if the horse is going to be in shape. I definitely think he'll be in shape. But Johnny V naturally goes to fierceness in this position. You know, I would as well. I think the horse was, you know, he was drifting out wide too, which shows that a horse could be getting tired. He was wide throughout, you know, even though he broke from the rail, he did have to swing outside. So you did have that catastrophic event as well in the top of the stretch, which you really don't know if any of those other closers, you know, were hindered or what have you. So you have to take that into consideration as well. You see Sierra Leone and Track Phantom beat him 2 back. You know, he really didn't run his race right there. But, you know, Junior Alvarado is definitely a capable rider. He's a great, great, strong rider, very strong. He knows how to control a horse, and he's familiar with a lot of Bill Mott's horses. I just think this horse is a little overmatched in this position, and, you know, he's going to have to sit real close to the lead, I believe. He's going to be one of the front runners in that top first tier, and it's going to be difficult for this horse to win. I'm going to take a pass.
Jay, you had mentioned that you thought this might be a little bit of a steam steam horse this week at Churchill.
Yeah, he's gotten a lot of the people who have watched works there, and I can see why. I mean, I thought his work was really good, his last work there. He's gotten a lot of good write-ups from people like Mike Welsh, who I have a lot of respect for, does the workout reports for the racing form. I'm kind of torn on Resilience. I thought he had as perfect a trip as you could get in that race that we just watched. But it was his first race with blinkers. And, maybe that is something that sort of propelled him forward. The race before that, I didn't think he had much of an excuse against Sierra Leone, Track Phantom, and Chasing Freedom in the Risen Star. But that race has really proven, the Risen Star has proven to be a really productive race. A lot of horses have exited that to run well. But he's going from a wide draw after having the rail in the race we just watched. So I don't think he's an impossible horse to get into the gimmicks. I think he needs to be faster to be a win candidate. He scares me a little bit from a gimmick standpoint, but I'm gonna try and beat him on the win end. Do you like him?
I'm just going to continue to take a stand against the wood, I think. Visually, I thought he looked good, coming down the lane. I respect Bill Mott a lot, but I'm going to probably take a pass on him. Our final replay is the Dubai UAE Derby in Dubai. And the winner is an undefeated Japanese horse named Forever Young. He's 5 for 5. He won 2 very rich races in the Mideast, winning the Saudi Derby and then the UAE Derby. And I think the three of us all have a big question mark. I know, Dwayne, you give this horse a big look. This race has not been productive traditionally going into the Kentucky Derby. Yet you look and see what these Japanese horses have done over the last few years, winning huge races all over the world, and you get the feeling it's just a matter of time before one of these Japanese horses wins the Kentucky Derby. So let's look at this and get our thoughts and some of our questions about the horse as well. He is on the far outside, by the way. They don't go with saddlecloth numbers there. I think he might be 5, but he's coming out of the 11 post. This is Forever Young.
Starter has a look at them, likes them, and hits the lever. We are underway in the UAE Derby, sponsored by Atlantis the Royal, and it is Julio Holohara in the early stages with 2 of his 3 runners coming up to contest as they make their way off the front. It is Autobahn in the blue cap from Oasis Boy, spotting the white distinguishing cap. Then came next in running their Guns and Glory, who's a little wide into the first turn, along with Forever Young, who's having to do a fair bit of work there in the early stages, and Ryuze Sake decides to slip back. Mendelssohn Bay finds himself into the box seat now, just in behind the leading division. Behind Forever Young sees George Tesoro with Pandagate. Working alongside there as well was Navy Seal. Then came Rock Walk from Henry Adams, and Ballon d'Or is the last one. So out past the 1,200 metres they go, and the pace is okay. 8.55, 19.24, those early sections there for that first early part. And up in front now, taking over Oasis Boy. Heads over to the fence here from Autobahn in second. Then came Mendelssohn Bay, sliding up Guns and Glory. Forever Young, the international market favourite, has been no better than 3 deep and punching the breeze the entire way so far. Then came Pandagate, Navy Seal opting to get on the right horses back here. Then came Ballon d'Or from Rockwalk, and dropping away Henry Adams, who's getting further away from the field. Inside the 700 they go, and up in front, up on the running rail, Oasis Boy leads a narrow margin. Autobahn goes up to apply a bit of pressure. Forever Young still travelling despite being deep as they make their way into the home stretch here in the UAE Derby. Then came Mendelssohn Bay, deeper out Navy Seal, not too far away Pandagate, still with 4 to pick up. As they get into the running here, Autobahn takes over. Forever Young on the one rein there, but balances up now, comes up to the outside of Autobahn, who has to be brave. It's Forever Young though for Japan, who comes up to the outside of Autobahn, goes past by a length. Forever Young drawing away here in the late stages, and it's another Japan domination in the UAE Derby. Autobahn very brave in second. Third across Pandagate from Mendelssohn Bay, then came Navy Seal.
Dwayne, you should start because this is a horse you put right on top.
Yeah, I'm trying to break the streak with the UAE Derby. I mean, you look at this horse, broke his maiden at 1 1/8 miles, ran another 1 1/8 miles, 1 3/16 stab, parked 4 wide throughout. And you could see at the top of the stretch that he still had a ton. The rider just shakes the reins and he's right going with the leader. And, you know, the trip is very important here because I think this was a massive learning experience. Now, we all know how hard it is to go from Saudi Arabia to Dubai, then to the Kentucky Derby, but the horse has banked already $1.4 million this year. And like Bob said, it's only a matter of time. You saw such a great showing in the Breeders' Cup Classic from the Japanese runner, you know, chasing White Abario. And if I'm not mistaken, he had come out of this race. And it was a tremendous long layoff. And yet the horse almost won the Breeders' Cup Classic. So eventually one of these horses is going to pop from the UAE Derby. And this horse has a tremendous chance. I think he could get a perfect trip. I mean, the post position shouldn't really hurt. It's just, is the rider, you know, acclimated enough? Hopefully he doesn't get nervous, butterflies in his stomach. And, you know, I'm just trying not to give Fierceness and Sierra Leone, which every single person is just going to hammer, and you're going to have these real short odds. You know, we're trying and give you a little value, and a horse that has a perfect record that is 5 for 5 definitely could be a major factor. And I throw that UAE Derby streak out here. I think this horse is probably one of the best. And if he breaks soundly, you know, he could run over a good course or an off course. We've seen that twice in Japan. I think the horse has a tremendous chance. And, you know, I don't think he's going to be, I've seen 7-1 now. So he's taken some action, and people are definitely respecting this race and the Saudi race.
Jay, what do you think?
Well, just like you're going to play against the Wood until proven otherwise, I'm going to play against the UAE Derby until proven otherwise. There's a couple things, with all due respect to Dwayne, and, you know, for your sake, I hope he runs well. But as you saw in this race, he doesn't break well. And in his race 3 back, he didn't break well. And he's in the middle of the field. And he needs to be outside. What he's got on his face, it's not blinkers, it's like a cloth shield, because they say that he doesn't like getting the dirt kicked back. Well, he's going to get dirt kicked in his face tomorrow, coming through the stretch the first time. And he's going to have to swing wide. And if he can do that and outfinish Sierra Leone, I will tip my cap to Forever Young for winning the race tomorrow. I think it comes up very poor for him, and I'm against him.
I'm going to middle it. I'm going to go right down the middle. I'm going to sit on the fence here. I could see him winning the race. I could see him running poorly. To me, he's the huge X factor in the race, and I just don't know what's going to happen with him. I'm not including him in my ticket just because, kind of like Jay, we've seen this act with the UAE Derby, and the kickback scares me. When they say they need to keep this horse 4 wide every step of the way, well, that's a long way to run when you're going 1.25 miles to being 4 wide out there the whole way. But Dwayne, if he wins, I'm going to come up and give you a kiss on the cheek in the race book tomorrow.
That was only if Marcello would have won the Philly Man, and I would have taken a kiss. Yeah. That was huge that day.
What was the name of that horse?
Blue
Angel? The one who was in the distaff
against
a couple years ago.
Blue Prize?
Yeah, right, exactly.
So real quick story. I'm over here doing our Breeders' Cup seminar, and everyone, the clockers, are saying how good this horse is doing and training great. And I'm looking at the paper, and I know this horse isn't good enough to win. I've seen it in Southern California, but I throw it in anyway, just based on respect for guys like Mike Welsh and how good the horse was doing. Well, all of a sudden, challenging at the top of the lane, I've got it in all my exotic bets, and the horse was 30-1, right?
Yeah.
So I stand up out of my seat, and I start walking toward the TV. For some reason, I think that's going to make the horse run faster. And now I'm, whipping with my program, and I can see we lose the worst head bob in history. And I take my baseball hat and I throw it all the way across the other end of the race book, not handling defeat in very heroic fashion. But
costed us thousands.
And Dwayne wasn't much better. I think you were on the ground back there behind the cage. So it was a tough beat. All right, let's get into who we are picking for the race. Always the fun part, how we're going to put our opinions to actual dollars. And we have Dwayne's Derby bets to start with.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the UAE Derby winner. I don't buy much into this kickback stuff. And, I definitely think that's a deception. The horse isn't going to have to go 5 wide throughout. He could definitely settle into a good position. It's just according to how much paces they're going to be. This race doesn't look like there's going to be tremendous pace unless Fierceness tries to take control and these guys try and really push him out of the gate. So I think this horse could get a perfect trip. Naturally, Fierceness is the horse to beat. I mean, if he runs that race that he ran, you could see the ears pricked. He was just having fun. He's galloping out there. Johnny V didn't use anything in that race. And to train up to this race, off of that Florida Derby, he definitely is the horse to beat. Sierra Leone, you know, this is another factor where he's going to have to pass at least 18 horses out of the 20. He's going to be in the back. He's going to be in the back with the Cox horse. And, you know, I just think some of these horses, sometimes they put themselves in a position to do too much. Not everybody is Monarchos and could definitely get that trip and come and sweep. You know, Chad Brown is definitely capable. I think the horse might have peaked in that last race. He seems to be improving, but I think Fierceness is actually a little better than Sierra Leone, unless the track comes up, you know, ultra slop. Then I like Sierra Leone's chances to run second. But, I mean, the horse won the Saudi Arabia big race. The UAE Derby was just massively impressive, and he was able at 1 mile and 3/16 to stay 4 wide and continue on. So keep that in mind. He already has done this. So I think it'll be a little more friendly to him at Churchill Downs. That's a difficult surface in Maidan. Don't kid yourself. I mean, we've seen some great horses excel there, and we've seen some horses that just bounce. I mean, look at, you know, in the past, there's been great, tremendous races in this UAE Derby where they don't run in the Kentucky Derby. We know that. But I think this horse will definitely get out of the gate, be in a good position, and, you know, be coming at Fierceness at the end. And it's going to be tough to get by Pletcher in this position, but I'm going to take a shot. I just can't take 9-5 on Fierceness in a 20-horse field.
So Dwayne has an exacta box there in the bottom, and then trifectas. The 8 horse you're including is just a touch. So
Yes.
A couple small trifecta plays. And Dwayne, I'm going to switch it over now to your pick 5 ticket, which is $108, races 8 through 12. So take us through that.
Yeah, we're starting off with the Pat Day Mile, which is always competitive. That's like the sister race, basically, to the Kentucky Derby. I'm going to go with the 8, which is Top Connor, and I am using the 11 and 12. I really like the 11 and 12 in this race. Vlahos with Maldonado, the Candyman, and I believe that's a Doug O'Neill horse. And also, I am using the bottom in that race. Nash looks very tough with Florent Giroux. That's going to be a very tight. I like 11-12 a lot in that race, to be honest with you. Next race, we're going on to the American Turf. That is the 9th race, and we will be looking at the 5-6. I like the Tory there on the 5 horse, Legend of Time. The 6 Neat is definitely going to take a lot of action. That's Raylu Gutierrez, and that horse showed tremendous guts in his last start. Keep that in mind. That is a game racehorse right there. And then we're going with Set. Irad Ortiz. You're going to see me use Irad a lot. I think he's going to pick up a lot of good, you know, purses here in these races. We move on to the 10th race. I'm going with, you know, in the Churchill Downs big race. That's for the 7 furlongs. I like the 3. I'm using, I like the 2. I'm using Tejano Twist. I am using Mr. Wireless, and I am using Zozos, once again with Florent Giroux and those connections. The 11th race, I don't think the 1 is going to be able to crack the 2 Chad Brown horses. I'm actually going to box 5-6 in that Turf Classics race. I think they're going to run 1-2 in that race. You get Pratt, you get Ortiz, you got Chad Brown. I think it's going to be too much for Gaffalione and the 1 who is going to be their main, you know, objective to beat in that race. So I'm going to go with both the Chad Brown runners. Then you could see I'm going to use the 4 horses. I respect Bob's opinion. I think that's the better of the 2 Brad Cox horses, you know, without a doubt. And I'm going to use, naturally, my 3 horses that I really like, you know, Fierceness. And we're going to definitely take a chance here, guys. I think this horse can win the race, Forever Young. My best bet of the day is actually in race 7, Eve Jets. This is a horse I made a lot of money. It's an East Coast-based miler, and I definitely think the horse is going to be trying to be on the lead or really close and has a distinctive class edge in this race. I think he's going to run down A.G. Bullet, who is a Richard Baltish trained horse, scratched out earlier today. I hope he actually runs the one, you know, because he did scratch today. I think he was preferring that this would be an easier spot and that the horse, you know, loves 6.5 furlongs and may, you know, be able to carry to a mile. So I think 7-1 in race 7 is a cold exacta. I'll box it for a little, but this Eves Jets, Merkin Cantamachi, he's a guy who flies under the radar, but this is what's making his stable is this tremendous racehorse. And this horse ran only a length and a half off of an Italian at a mile, and she was a tremendous, lead horse, and definitely was always tough to beat at a mile or a mile and a 16th. So keep your eye on the board. I don't think we're going to get, 8-1, 6-1 morning line. And we have Umberto Rispoli in the saddle, first time, but he definitely knows what to do. He's a great turf rider.
All right, let's go to Jay's bankroll here. He put a $100 bankroll in, plus some pick 4 tickets, Jay.
Right, so the Derby, I like usually making a win bet in the Derby, but this year, to me, it's just really challenging to separate 4 horses that I like. So what I ended up doing is just making an exacta box with the 4 horses I like best, which are Sierra Leone, Just a Touch, Fierceness, and Stronghold, and then playing a trifecta box with those 4 horses as well. The 2 biggest prices of those 4 are 8 Just a Touch and 18 Stronghold, so I made win-place bets on both of those. And just for a little bit of extra greed, in case I'm extra smart tomorrow, a last little exacta box of the 2 longest shot of those 2. But the play that I'm going to really base most of my day around is this pick 4 in races 9 through 12. I really like this sequence a lot. So this is going to be my major play of the day. So starting in race 9, and these races are the last 4 races basically of the pick 5 that Dwayne gave out. I've got a couple of slight tweaks from what Dwayne did. So as you can see, I've played 2 different tickets. It's the same in 3 of the legs and a little different in one of them. So in the first leg, which is race 9, the grass race, I'm using the 5 Legend of Time and the 10 Set. And then in the second leg, the Churchill Downs, the sprint, I'm using Tejano Twist. Hear Me Song is the 5, 6 is Zozos, and the 11 is Hoist the Gold. And then as you can see on the other ticket that I'm playing, I'm using all. And so what I'm trying to do here is basically, if one of those 4 that I've got on the top ticket wins, I'm alive now twice, right, for $1 instead of just 50 cents. And if I'm wrong with those 4, I've got what I think is a pretty wide open race. I've got, at least I can move on to the next leg if I'm right in the first leg. Then moving on into the last 2 legs, race 11, I've got I'm Very Busy, one of the Chad Browns that Dwayne likes, but I'm also using Naval Power, who I thought ran super at Keeneland last time out, for Appleby, who always is firing over here. And then obviously in the last leg, which is the Derby, I'm using the 4 horses that I've talked about so far. So that's my main play of the day tomorrow.
All right, and I'm going to go to the Derby. And generally, I love to play trifectas in this race. And what I need to do is find a key horse and then kind of wrap it around 3 others and then hit the all box and hope for some chaos to finish third. So that's what I'm going to do again tomorrow. And my key horse is on top, number 8, Just a Touch. That's the horse I talked about, the Brad Cox. I think he'll sit up there at 7 or 8, maybe even 10-1 if we get lucky. I put the other Brad Cox second, and I know, Jay, you could be right about the Louisiana Derby just being a bad race, but with the Pratt factor, maybe there's a meltdown up top. I think he comes running. Fierceness, of course, going to be very tough to beat. I'm putting him 3rd and Sierra Leone 4th. So my try is going to be keying the 8 horse Just a Touch with those 3 my next 3 choices for second, and then all for third. So for 50 cents, that's a $27 play. And then I'll come back and flip-flop them and put Just a Touch in the middle, and then use all again for third for 27. I'll box all 4 in the exacta, trifecta, and superfecta. Now, I did not have time to come up with a ticket. If I do, I'll put it on my sheet, which will be in the race book tomorrow. But just a couple horses I'm going to gamble on individual races. So go to the 5th. And this is a 5.5 furlong turf sprint. And sometimes when you wait on horses, you have to wait a long time. But Motorius is a horse I bet in this race last year. I was so confident. I just didn't think the horse could lose, and I thought I got a very rare, poor Flavien Prat ride. He was so concerned about Big Invasion, and he kept watching to see where Big Invasion was. He forgot the horse on the lead Nobles was 5 in front. He came running, but he came up a bit short. This horse has been away since the Breeders' Cup turf sprint. He's more than capable. He's trained well. He's Phil D'Amato. So 7-2 on Motorius in the 5th. And then go to the 8th race. Dwayne, you better include this horse in your pick 5 because I think you didn't have it on your ticket. Number 7, Houday, was an undefeated horse going into his last start at Keeneland. To say he got a bad ride would be an understatement. Huge jockey switch tomorrow to Jay's man, Brian Hernandez, and he is 10-1. It's not an easy race, but I think he's a good gamble. So those are a couple horses I'll bet individually, and if I can come up with a pick 5 or pick 4, I'll put that together on my sheet. That'll be in the race book tomorrow. I think we should open it up for some questions from the audience now, guys.
Yeah, definitely. If you want to step to the mic, or yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I guess for Dwayne, the Forever Young angle certainly. He could definitely win, right? I respect you for taking him. But I'm curious, as I was listening to you, do you know how the horses coming out of the Saudi Derby or the Dubai Derby have performed since?
Oh, they're 0 for, I believe, 0 for 10. And
0 for 10.
Not
in the Derby.
fifth.
Not in the Derby.
No.
In their next race. I mean, that race is a while back.
You mean
right?
this year's
This
field,
year's.
how they've done exiting?
How they've done since. Like, is there any back, any key races coming out of that?
That's a great question, because you actually, you're looking for other horses that could have possibly ran in the Derby that chose to pass it up. If you look in the past performances, hold on, I don't believe the top 3 finishers have come back to run yet. I'm sure there are other horses in the race that have run since then, but I have not seen any. It's tough to get that data from the Dubai races, and the racing form usually italicizes the horses that have come out of the race and have come back to win, but no, we're not seeing that here, and it's very difficult to garner if the horses stayed in UAE or went back to Japan or went all over the different areas of the country. So no, unfortunately, I don't know, but great question. Thank you.
Guys, thank you very much. Wonderful presentation, and I really benefited from learning who you like. One aspect as a gambler is to find out who you're against to a certain extent. So here's my question, and I'm going to nuance it for both Jay and Bob, because they gave away a little bit of the house a little bit there. Jay, you cannot pick Catching Freedom or Forever Young. And Bob, you cannot take Forever Young. Of the 5 horses that are 10-1 or less, who is the most overrated at their odds? Who would you want to book against for those 5 horses?
And who are the 5 that are lower than 10-1?
We have Catching Freedom, but again, you can't take that one. Sorry. Just a Touch, Sierra Leone, Forever Young, and Fierceness. So who is overrated from that group, from your perspective?
I'm going to have to pass, because 3 of the 4 that you that you were wanting me to choose from are 3 of are horses that I've got in my trifecta. So I'm going to have to punt, Al. Sorry.
All right.
Given those options, I'm going to have to punt Forever Young. And I know I could be wrong, but I'm fully aware that the horse could win or he could be up the track. But, if he's going to take some steam at 7-1, that's a horse I could give up on.
I would say Catching Freedom because, like Jay said, I think that race, wasn't that strong. And you both guys said they were just lining across the track. Anna Marie, so I would probably say Catching Freedom. I mean, Fierceness and Sierra Leone and Forever Young, in my opinion. I mean, how do you find any flaws in any of their last 3 races if you go back? I mean, we know Fierceness has the bounce theory, but Sierra Leone's been impeccable. The Japanese horse has been impeccable. That was a slower run race, and I like Bob's horse as well because I like the Ragozin speed progression. Like I said, 10, 8, 9, possibly a 7. So I would probably say Catching Freedom.
Bob, Jay, Dwayne, nice to see you guys.
Bruce, how are you?
I'm good.
Great seeing you, Bruce.
Hey, good. My first question is, why would anybody name a horse after Sierra Leone? It's like the worst place in the world, isn't it, Alan? I mean, is this stablemate Bangladesh and Biafra? I mean, whatever. I know he's a great horse. All right, my question, though, is the only Derby I went to was in '94, and it rained. Go for Gin won, and Tabasco Cat ended up not running well, and he won the next 2, which was like '67, Damascus. It rained.
And if you ever have a question about sports trivia, you ask Bruce Marshall because he has the most photographic memory in the United States.
I think, that '67 race, Bobby Usry, who just passed away, Proud Clarion came way outside. I mean, way outside. He came around the traffic. But my question is, we're going to be watching tomorrow, and we're going to know early if it's the weather and the rain, the track. So maybe you mentioned this earlier and I missed it, but if we see this track is off tomorrow, who are the 2 or 3, if there are any good mudders in the race or off-track, horses that run on the off-track, who would you think should we take a look at then?
I mean, one of the two points from me regarding that. A, don't count on it being an off-track. The forecast is for it to be nicer, and that track dries out really well.
Yeah. Right.
But if it is, to me, Mystic Dan would be a horse to move up on an off-track. That would be one I would mention.
Mr. Dan, okay.
I think Sierra
Thanks for coming, Bruce.
Sierra Leone with that gun runner breeding is just amazing over the slop. So definitely, I don't care what part of the country or whatever he's named after, but if it comes up sloppy, he definitely moves up a little.
And there are a handful of horses in the form that show some wet track form, at least a couple starts over sloppy or wet fast. It's just such a crapshoot. Today was a very difficult day. We had sloppy and yielding. I don't think necessarily the best horses won every race today, but those are the conditions you're dealt with. Yes, sir. Off-track,
yes.
Can go from sloppy to muddy. It used to be heavy back in the old days. Off-track, yes.
Right, yes. And the daily racing form, Jay could tell you, they used to have like a mark. They would have an X if you were superior, mud runner. They used to have the X with the circle, which was over the top. And they kind of took away that information, but if you look at the breeding, and some of these time form numbers are okay when they help you with the breeding, but like Gun Runner, Speightstown, when you see that, these horses love the sloppy track. I mean, their breeding is just transpiring into those runners, and that's a very high time form number as well when you get to dealing with the Gun Runners and the Speightstown. So look for the breeding.
This gentleman in the Golden Knight shirt had a question earlier, I think. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, my top pick actually has run okay on an off track.
Yeah,
so,
definitely.
And
2 starts, 1
Sierra
win, 1
Leone has
second.
run on an off track. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes,
And the
sir.
Japanese horse, 2 good tracks.
Yeah, I have another one. I was thinking about War Emblem, who won the Derby for Bob Baffert coming. I think what reminded me of him that it said Sportsman Park, and I think that's where he came out of. And it was a horse that Baffert bought, had some Shaw by him, and then he wins the Derby. And I remember my dad, I was sitting with my dad, and he said, after the horse won, right, and we were like, God damn, Baffert, wins the race. With a long shot, I think he paid, pretty well. But he said, Dwayne Lucas said before the race that he read something about that, what Dwayne Lucas said, and talking about that horse, and that he ran a 37 in his last 3/8. And I don't know if you guys have heard this before or not, but Dwayne said, hey, if they run a 37 in the last 3/8, that horse is for real. So there's one race you guys didn't talk about, and it's the Tampa Bay Derby, which was a super slow race, right? But that horse, who was ridden by Irad, Dwayne, trained by Chad, going off at 30-1, that ran faster last 3/8 than I've ever seen a horse run in a Derby prep ever. Period. I think he went 35.03. And I was just like to ask your opinion on what you guys think of domestic product.
I thought he was just a little too slow on numbers. Obviously, the pace being so slow last time prevented a fast number. He did come home in a hurry. Today it was interesting because the highly regarded Chad Browns weren't necessarily firing, and the second stringers, or at least the perceived second stringers, ran a couple big races today. I'm not going to knock those connections under any circumstances. I don't think he's good enough personally, but if he wants to clunk into my trifecta at 30-1, I'll be very happy to take him for third.
He beat the favorite, in the Holy Bull. We saw that. But getting back to what you said earlier, I do know a horse that came out of that race. Agate Road has had a very tough, career after that race, and he was, taking a lot of action. But they made that a non-wagering event because they couldn't commingle the pools, right? So, definitely this horse would have been one of the top, favorites in that race if the wagering was allowed. I could never knock Chad and Irad. So, definitely if he could run back to the Holy Bull and the Tampa Bay, there's always a chance, without a doubt.
I mean, just to add on to it, I'm of two minds of him. I don't think he's fast enough. I also question if he wants to go 1.25 miles. Most practical jokes don't want to go that far. They're more 1.1 1/16, 1.1 1/8 horses. And I think it's interesting that the one time this horse tried 1.1 1/8, he was awful. And his last couple races were at 1.1 1/16. That said, I would never talk anybody off a horse who's 30-1, that's trained with those connections, right? So I don't like the horse, but, I would never tell you not to play a horse at that price. If he's 5-1, I'd be like, you know what? But not at 30.
And 27% Irad and Chad Brown this year thus far. So.
All right, good evening. I'd like to bring it on the light side for a little bit because we've talked about the first Japanese horse coming in there, but there's another Japanese horse in there too, and nobody seemed to have a liking for him. Well, I got a left field liking for him because his jockey is Kimura, and my first wife was named Kimura. So I said, hey, there's the hookup, because she ran me away, so this horse might do the same thing. But do any of you guys think this horse has a chance? Because a couple of articles came out last week in the Forum, and they said he looked like he was working better than Forever Young. Am I right or wrong?
Yes, I saw a Kimura interview just, I think it was last night, and he loves the horse, the way the horse is working out and acclimating himself. I just think he's a little too lightly raced. 2 starts only, and then to leap into the Derby, but, has done nothing wrong on the form.
There was a Japanese horse that ran today in one of the races, the older horses, and he ran an incredible race on the front end. He looked like he was running off. He was 27-1 or something. I figured he's going to finish last, and he won a photo for second. And I think I read that your horse, T.O. Password, has maybe
They were working together.
Working together. So that was an older horse. We're not going to talk you out of it. And the ex-wife angle is always strong.
Okay, thanks. Thank you.
Mike, you're back there. Mike, we want Mike's pick. Who does Mike Colucci pick?
I don't know. I like Fierceness, but I think if the track comes up real muddy, I would go with Leone. Definitely. I would go with that angle and Fierceness, and I like Dwayne's horse a lot, too. I wanted to know, on the rag numbers, I never get the rag sheets except for the big days. So I got them for tomorrow, and you see Fierceness at 8, 9, 5. Look at this horse from Japan. He has 2 6s, which I find that amazing in this field. Like, he would really, if he likes the mile and a quarter, he should run good. Definitely.
The
But
Colucci's handicapped together, and they play together.
And we,
No, they're
very rarely do we come up on horses together.
But you combine your forces, is what I'm saying.
Oh,
and
yes,
It's the dynamic duo.
And we always hit 4 out of 5.
Yeah,
We don't hit 5.
we're all good at 4 out of 5.
More 4 out of 5s than Ted Williams.
Right.
Yes,
But
ma'am.
I'm looking forward to tomorrow. It'll be great racing. Great racing tomorrow.
Okay. Hey. No, that's fine. That's great.
Anybody else? Well, this was clearly the best one of our 7, and Jay Privman raised our game for sure. So thank you, Jay.
Yes, thank you, Jay. Thank you. Much appreciated, definitely.
Oh, thank
Great
you,
to have
Dwayne,
you
Bob.
on board.
It's nice to
Great.
be with you guys. Thank you.
Great.
And thanks to you guys.
Yes.
And let's win some money tomorrow and support Dwayne. We're going to have a big day in the race book, and come
Yes.
in and bet your money, and let's cash some tickets tomorrow.
Yes, don't forget,
Good luck.
$50 bet on the Kentucky Derby tomorrow. You get a voucher for the Clubhouse Deli, chicken fingers, burgers, or fries. We have the hat contest for the ladies. That'll be in the front of the casino, $1,000 in prizes. We have the best comp ratio, even beating our sister property, South Point. $40 gets you 1 comp dollar. Every 40 you bet, 1 comp dollar, not points, in my racing sports book. The Rampart loves horse racing. We love our horse players. Just come by, say hi. We'll have Bob Ike sheet on the counter. We'll have a sheet with Jay's picks, my picks. Let's make some money tomorrow and enjoy ourselves. Definitely. Thank you. We appreciate all of you. I say it always. We can't do it without the public, and we got to keep this game going because, you know, even now, me at the age of 51, I'm a youngster for betting horses, and we can't have that. We have to have the young generation and us combine and keep this great sport alive. It is one of the best. It is still the sport of kings. It's the only place where you could bet 50-cent dollar increments and make thousands of dollars, other than a lottery, which nobody's going to hit the lottery. I have a better chance of getting hit by lightning than hitting the lottery. And we don't have a lottery in Nevada, so keep that in mind as well. Thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate you coming out. Bob Ike, Jay Privman, thank you. It's just such a pleasure to rub elbows with these professional handicappers. These are the best handicappers in the United States. And it's just a pleasure to be involved with these guys.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for it was a great time, and can't wait to do it again.